Hello and welcome to the second interview from the Blockchain Live team. I'm joined by Rhian Lewis, co-founder of London Women in Bitcoin and indeed advisor for Blockchain Live. Welcome, Rhian.
Thank you.
So we're here just to have a quick interview, find a bit more about you, find a bit more about your group, and indeed gather your opinions on blockchain to advise our audience and indeed those who are reading our blog. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to find out your background. You're a test automation developer. How does you kind of move from that to blockchain?
Well, about 5 years ago, I started trading cryptocurrencies. I'd always been interested in Bitcoin after reading about it in about 2011. Got my toes wet, so to speak, in 2013 when I started trading cryptocurrencies. And as you say, I'm a developer, so I wrote a script to track my own cryptocurrency investments. That turned into a portfolio tracker, Count My Crypto, which I launched with a friend in 2014. And then after that, I just became obsessed with all things crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain. Became very active in the community, and at the time, things have changed significantly now, but I would frequently be the only woman at meetups that I went to. I thought that was a bit of a shame. When I went to Berlin, a friend of mine was running a group for women in Bitcoin in Berlin. I enjoyed going to those meetups so much that when I came back to London, my friend Magda and I decided to launch the London equivalent, London Women in Bitcoin.
Fantastic. And how can people find out a bit more about that group and those kind of activities?
We're on meetup.com. Or also, if people follow me on Twitter or Medium, Rhian _is, I tend to announce meetups and so on there, and people can always reach out to me there and ask about the events and so on. But we've grown hugely over the last 4 years or so. We've gone from a group of 4 or 5 of us, sometimes 2 or 3 of us, sitting around a table in a bar, to where we are now, which is hosting talks and events at Skills Matter in London, where we sometimes have 50 plus people and some pretty awesome speakers.
Excellent. And so this is one community of many communities that exist in London, and London has a fantastic developer community and indeed a very large and growing blockchain community. In your opinion, from someone who's a community leader, why is it important that people come together and meet outside of work hours to explore blockchain and Bitcoin?
I think because this technology is just so interesting and it has the potential to change just about everything about the way we transact and act in our lives in the future. It's something that people find themselves being drawn into and not really thinking of necessarily as a work thing. So it's just really interesting to go and find out more about it. But more importantly, while there are large companies doing quite interesting things in the field, a lot of the innovation is coming from individuals, smaller companies, startups and enthusiasts. And I think it's really important not to forget the grassroots, and it's where a lot of the exciting stuff is actually happening, because large companies, while there are some great examples of people using blockchain in an innovative way, generally it's harder to innovate if you have a big legacy infrastructure, whereas people finding out about things for themselves and becoming involved on the ground is just a more dynamic way of going about things.
And I think that's what we tend to be seeing in terms of some innovative projects are making waves in countries where they don't have big legacy systems or legacy regulation, which can sometimes be a bit of a barrier. In regards to the UK and London, though, we've got a big financial services sector. Where do you see perhaps London being? I know this is something we've spoken about previously, but where do you see London being a useful city, or at least a unique place for the blockchain community?
I think there are different hubs around the world that focus on different elements of the technology. London is particularly strong for fintech, as you say, and I think one of the advantages London has is that there's a fairly friendly regulatory environment with the FCA sandbox arrangement, which allows companies to do things that aren't strictly within the existing legislation, but in a permissive environment. I think that's quite an attraction for companies wanting to innovate in the fintech area.
And you mentioned that the other hubs. You spend a lot of your time in Berlin, which is another fantastic hub of innovation, certainly, and a lot of startups and communities based around cryptocurrencies and blockchain. How does that differ, and how does the Berlin environment differ?
I think because Berlin is not Germany's financial centre, there's a lot less in the way of big financial companies there, but there's a massively strong, passionate grassroots movement there based around cryptocurrency. We should remember that it was in Berlin that the first bricks and mortar Bitcoin transaction actually happened, which a lot of people don't realise, but although Bitcoin had been used online before, it was in the Room 77 bar in Berlin where the first real life payment was made with Bitcoin. So it's an interesting piece of history.
Wow. And since Bitcoin's arrival, there's lots of other altcoins that are kind of bubbling to the fore, but Bitcoin still remains kind of key cryptocurrency and also a key driver. And you see a lot of big institutions now trading Bitcoin, large institutions, large banking institutions, investing quite a lot of grey matter and money into exploring Bitcoin specifically, but also other altcoins. What do you think Bitcoin's role is in the few coming years, certainly with these new altcoins that are, as I say, competing?
Well, I think the history of the last couple of years has been fascinating. It shows that Bitcoin has kind of proven itself in terms of security and the possibilities that it offers. About 2 years ago there was a real thing where you'd go to companies and they'd say, oh, we want blockchain but not Bitcoin, and people never even used to mention Bitcoin, whereas now, as you say, it's again to the fore, and a lot of financial institutions are talking about Bitcoin, not just blockchain. Bitcoin was the first use case for blockchain technology, and for me, certainly from the financial point of view, it remains the primary one. People might come along with interesting uses of the technology for smart contracts and so on, but from a financial point of view, Bitcoin remains primary, really interesting focus.
And as you say, there was originally, as you said, 2 years ago, people who wanted to invest purely in blockchain and certainly wanted to ignore Bitcoin, and that's coming together now. I think we're seeing a lot of people wanting to find out a bit more about blockchain, but being perhaps a bit put off in many respects. And you wrote a really interesting post recently on some of the non-techie questions you get. It'd be interesting to learn from you why you think blockchain has this combined mystery, but also a sense of captivity, that people are so interested in it but still don't quite understand it.
People don't really understand the money side of it, because I think people don't really understand what money is. And that probably is one of the key questions I get. Someone at my meetup group recently said, can you exchange it for real money? And I was like, well, hold on for a minute, let's go back to basics. Let's think about what money is, what makes a pound more like money than Bitcoin is, because I could go on for hours about different things that people have used as money over the ages, but I think that's the primary confusion, and the idea that you can transact without some centralised authority. People find this idea endlessly fascinating. They don't really see why it works, but then once you explain things to them, then they find it hard to see why it wouldn't work. And I've been quite, Neha, who I run the meetup group with now since Magda had to take a step back, we've been quite adamant that we're not going to rename our group to anything blockchain related. We remain a Bitcoin focused group, even though we have talks about general blockchain technology, but I like the fact that our group's called London Women in Bitcoin, because it kind of gives a sense of where we came from and what we still think is important.
And I think the future for Bitcoin is still, very bright. And just finally as well, whilst we're on the subject of this combination, I suppose, of economics and technology, do you feel like modern Bitcoin developers are becoming more, or modern developers are becoming more economically focused in terms of thinking about economic theories, and indeed are economists becoming more technically focused? Is this a kind of combination of interest?
It's fascinating. I don't know about economists becoming more technically focused. I actually have a BSc in economics myself, and from the economists I meet, I wouldn't say they're particularly technologically focused more than they used to be. But certainly if you talk to computer science students these days, I was talking to some at Imperial the other week, they're all very, very aware of financial systems in a way that I'm sure computer science students weren't 20, 30 years ago. I think the whole cryptocurrency thing has focused people more into thinking about this sort of thing. I think this intersection, as you say, of technology and economics is really fascinating.
Excited to find out more, and of course you can catch Rhian at Blockchain Live on the 26th of September, and if you want to find out more you can head over to our website blockchainlive.com, or indeed catch us on Twitter at UK Blockchain. Thank you, Rhian.